Okay, so a video that has been requested for quite a while, the 2020 Softail Lowrider S versus the 2016 Dyna Lowrider S. So Marvel Kid was kind enough to come out and join us today all the way from Jersey to come hang out, shoot a couple videos, get some miles in. So I'm excited to shoot this video and do this little comparison. And as you can see, obviously neither of these bikes are stock, but I'm going to do my best to talk about comparisons and differences in terms to when the bikes were actually stock. So again, they are not stock, but I'm going to do my best to talk about things that were on there when these bikes first came out. Okay, so first category is that rear fender, and I think the 2020 Lowrider S definitely is winning when it comes to that. When you buy this bike stock, it does come with the full fender with the lay-down plate, whereas if you want that with the Dyna Lowrider S, you have to make that upgrade. I ordered mine from the factory, got it Vivid Gloss, which was a stock FXDL fender from the year that they made it in Vivid Black. So yeah, it comes with a chopped fender, so if you want a full fender, then you have to make that upgrade. And I really like the fact that with the 2020, you know, they got that sense from the community and they're like, yeah, let's give this bike a full fender. So it's definitely winning in that category. So the next thing that really jumped out at me is the bars, right? So thing number two is the bar setup. I was looking at his bars and I was like, yo, dude, are you running like Biltwell high bends or mid bends or something on this? And he's like, no, that's absolutely stock. So I guess I didn't realize it when all this stuff came out, but the bar setup looks pretty good off the bat. You know, you got what looks like to be a 6-inch riser. And if you wanted to go higher on the riser, I would just keep that bar, man. Like, it's not bad looking at all. It looks solid. I definitely like this bar setup way better than a Dyna Lowrider S bar setup, which is just the drag bars. You know, obviously, I'm rocking the Lucky Dave's Lucky 13s at this point, but back in the days when I was running it with drag bars, man, a 200-mile day with those, you'd be feeling it in your back. So I like the fact that they came out with a better bar setup stock off the bat, so you don't need to run out, drop money on the bars. You could ride this out for a little while before you change it up, and you could reuse that bar that's on there. So I'm definitely digging where they went with the bar setup for this 2020 version. Okay, so you know I can't do this without talking about the Milwaukee 8 versus the Big Twin. So the 2020 Lowrider S comes stock with a 114 Milwaukee 8, whereas the Dyna Lowrider S is coming stock with a 110 Big Twin. So obviously two very, very different engines in many different ways, right? You are getting 4 more cubic inches with this, but you know, they're just two extremely different engines that sound and perform differently. But it's one thing for me to sit here and say that. Why don't we get a quick startup from each of these bikes so you could hear it sound-wise. The man, the myth, the legend, the Marvel Kid 87.
We go.
There you have it. It's different, dude. It's different. All right, so you guys have heard my startup many times before, but let's get a startup just so you could do a direct comparison. I mean, there's going to be plenty of people that just watch the video just for the startup.
Of course, I have a video that's just a startup video.
Just startups, yeah. There is your 110 Big Twin. A little bit different, right? And yeah, you're just gonna have those guys that are gonna talk a bunch of trash on the Milwaukee 8 and say, it doesn't sound like a Harley. I can't sit here and tell you which one sounds better, because at the end of the day, it just comes down to personal preference. You know, all I could say is they sound very different. I'm not going to sit here and try to describe different sounds to you. You guys just heard two very different sounding engines. So at the end of the day, comes down to personal preference, right? They're just very different, and I think that's a good thing, you know? If they built another engine that sounded exactly the same, well, there wouldn't be much to talk about right now. So two very different engines, two very different performing engines. I do have some experience riding with this engine. They did lend me a Fat Bob when I went to Sturgis for a day with this engine, and yeah, it's a separate video on its own. They handle and they feel and they sound completely different. Two completely different beasts. And yeah, he's running that TBR. I think that was a great choice. Thing sounds great. All right, so we talked about the engine. Thing number 4 that I want to talk about. So far, I've been saying that the 2020 has been winning in terms of decisions that they made, but there's one thing that's missing from the 2020 model that the 2016 model does have, and that is this. Where is the cruise control? Especially for someone like me that's doing these crazy long trips. You know, using cruise control for so many of them, man, when you're doing 700 plus mile days, this little option, this little button right here becomes essential. So as far as I know, both models are throttle by wire, so I have no idea why Harley Davidson wouldn't give this new model cruise control, you know? And again, it's not something I ever thought I needed until I did my first Sturgis trip, and that's when I was like, yep, I am very happy I have cruise control. So that's one thing I think the company definitely had a missed opportunity for. I don't know why they didn't give this bike cruise control. It would definitely enhance its touring capabilities, but who knows, maybe in 2021, you know, they'll call on Aquaman to give this bike some proper touring capabilities with cruise control. So next thing up, and the 5th thing that I'm going to make a comparison for, is of course the controls. One of the things that I really don't like about a lot of the Softail Dynas is that they gave them these like forward controls, but it looks like that they did the 2020 Lowrider S justice and they gave it mids. Now technically what's on mine is I technically have forward mids, but judging where the pegs come with the timing cover, it looks about the same to me. When I compare both these bikes, it looks pretty much the same, so I don't know, I'll have to look at the website when I get home, but it looks like they both have forward mids when it comes to controls. So people aren't buying this bike to sit back and be comfortable all day. People are buying this bike so that they could rip miles. And we know that if you're trying to rip miles, the best way to throw a bike into those twisties is with mid controls. Unless, of course, you're just so tall that that's going to be really uncomfortable for you. So in terms of controls, I think both bikes break even. It's definitely a tie. So good job, Harley Davidson. I'm glad you gave this bike mid controls and gave it a proper setup. Okay, I know I said I was only going to do 5, but I'll do one more. One thing that I'm glad that Harley Davidson did is gave this bike dual disc brakes. One mistake that they made for the new Lowrider is, for some reason, they changed it to a single disc, when the Lowrider, one of the calling cards was always that it had dual disc brakes. They did the 2020 Lowrider S justice, and just like its predecessor, the Dyna Lowrider S, this thing does come stock with dual disc brakes. This is what you could expect when you buy this bike stock. So again, I think that is going to be a tie between the two bikes. I think they made a great decision on that. Okay, so in terms of which of these bikes is the one you should buy, which of these bikes is the better bike, you know, it's impossible to say because they are just so incredibly different. I could like talk about probably 10 more things that are very different that make these bikes very much stand apart. So it's totally pointless for us to sit here and talk about which one's better, because at the end of the day, it comes down to personal preference. You know, I think right now, if I had to make the decision, and if money wasn't a thing, right, and I wasn't buying something used, I don't know, man, it's really hard. I think I actually need to think about that, and that's one that would be good to put out there to you guys. So asking you guys, if money wasn't a thing and you could choose, assuming that both models were stock, which one would you choose off the bat? The Dyna Lowrider S 2016-2017 or the Softail Lowrider S 2020 and I'm assuming 2021? Which one would you pick if money wasn't a thing? But that is my Lowrider S old versus new video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you check out my main man Marvel Kid 87. Give him a follow as I talked about in the previous video. And yeah, man, what do you want to do now, man? What's on the agenda?
Just gonna cruise, bro. Just cruise down the streets of Brooklyn.
You heard the man. It's time to cruise down the streets of Brooklyn. But as always, thank you for watching. It doesn't matter whether you ride a Dyna Lowrider S or a Softail Lowrider S. Man, are they both great bikes. And again, major shout out to my main man Marvel Kid. We've only been hanging out for about an hour, but I could already see that, you know, I think we're gonna be good friends. And yeah, man, look at those two beasts side by side. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. We'll go get some miles. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And that's it. Stay safe, stay low, follow Marvel Kid 87. And have a good one, guys. BK Low is out. Let me get a Marvel Kid is out.
Yeah. What up? Marvel Kid's out, baby.
Dude, that was the most Brooklyn outro anyone's ever done. All right, later, y'all.